Welcome to Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. We're excited that you're joining our leadership community. There's a lot of information about leadership, but a lot of times it's too sterile for real life. Life is messy and leadership can be messy. Here we talk about real leadership in the context of real life. If you're a leader looking for tips, insight, and wisdom on leadership, you can follow David on social media. And for upcoming group coaching experiences and more, go to gadberry.org. David is the lead pastor of Summit Church in Canyon, Texas, and we would love to invite you to be a part. For more information, go to yoursummitchurch.com. This is the Life and Leadership Podcast.
Hey, welcome everyone to Life and Leadership with Pastor David Gadberry, and we are so excited that you are here with us today. And hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you take a minute and like and share? And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That way you can know every time that we come on with a new Life and Leadership podcast. So I'm excited to be here today with Pastor David. My name is Scotty Haynes, and I'm one of the pastors on staff at Summit Church in Canyon, Texas. And so today I get to interview Pastor David, and I'm just going to be asking him some questions about leadership, just some leadership questions about how he does things, how he motivates other people. And so I'm excited about that this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
I hope this turns into a discussion because, you know, Scotty has just joined our team, but Scotty and I have worked together for several years on another staff, and he's been planning a church. And so, you know, he's going to be asking me questions today about leadership, but the truth is he's got a lot of experience in leadership himself. And so hopefully we can get some good discussion points out of this and really help everybody grow, because really all we want to do, Scotty, is add value to people. That, to me, our whole goal with Gadberry Leadership Coaching and really with anything we do is, you know, we want to help people discover their potential. Mm-hmm. We want to help people develop their potential and deploy their potential. It's shocking. It is truly shocking how many people go through life and never even tap the potential that they have. Yeah. Like there's stuff inside of them that's not getting out because they're not looking for it, or they don't realize it, or maybe someone's told them they don't have it. And so what we like to do is help them discover it, but then also help them develop it by coaching them through whatever it is they're trying to learn and develop, and then help them realize it, you know, and put it into action. Because, you know, potential's great, but if it's not used, it's literally has no value.
That's right.
And so, so our goal at Gadberry Leadership Coaching, at Summit Church Global, at Summit Church itself, is really just to add value to people and to as many people as we can. So I'm hoping everybody will share and subscribe and push that little bell on YouTube so it'll let them know every time we're doing a podcast. And if they want to know more about things that we're doing in terms of the leadership coaching, they can go to my website at gadberry.org, and you can just find there everything we do, an explanation of what we do, and be looking for a couple. I think we're going to do 3 group coaching experiences. Those are going to go up this week, and you can register for them, and it'll tell you the dates and the times and all of that. Great experience, very synergistic. Other people will be on with you. It's a virtual experience through a Zoom platform, and we're going to be talking. There are going to be 3 different ones. One's going to be putting your dream to the test. Man, it's an amazing kind of it's almost like a business plan for your dream. I mean, it just really puts it down where the rubber meets the road, and it asks you questions. This whole experience asks you questions about your dream. Is this really your dream? Is this a dream someone else had for you, or do you really have this dream? Do you know what it's going to take to reach this dream? Are you willing to do what it's going to take? What are the sacrifices that are going to need to be made? And are you willing to make those sacrifices? Yeah. It's just a really interesting thing. Then we're going to do another one on communication, that the best communicators are connectors. And so if you're looking for an opportunity to learn how to be a better communicator, interpersonally, public speaking, whatever the case may be, it's a great one for you. Several weeks, one night a week for several weeks. It'll be a powerful thing. A lot of materials with it that you'll receive as well. And then we're also going to be doing one called The Power of We. Now, those other 2, we're going to use some John Maxwell resources. with my coaching, of course, but John Maxwell resources that kind of give us a baseline.
Yeah.
But this power of We Won, you know, it's something that we created, and it is literally an unbelievable, effective results getting type program. And when I say that, I have experience to back that up. And we have created kind of a dynamic that teaches teams how to exchange mindsets to get them out of kind of an individualistic mindset more to a team mindset where they understand the power of team and exactly how it works.
That's good.
And it takes people from a place of being a group of people in the same organization to a team of people that are achieving the goals of that organization.
That's cool.
So it'll be interesting to see, and you can come as an individual or you can bring your whole team with you, and it's all virtual. It's a great experience because you have the synergy of other people who are entrepreneurial or whatever, also engaging. So you're not just thinking from your own experience, but you're listening to the other experiences and other thoughts and concepts. So they're all good. Be looking for those, and you can connect with those.
That's great.
All right.
And obviously, you know, this podcast is for people from many different walks of life. And, you know, if you're leading a team and at your job, if you're leading a team, and anything from coaching to CEOs, but even to church. And so as you were talking about that, it makes me think of, you know, the work of God, and the gospel is a we.
Yeah.
It's a we gospel. It's very, we're built to actually strengthen one another, and that goes through all facets of life. We're better when we work together. So that's awesome.
That's right.
All right, let me ask you some questions.
Okay.
And this one I didn't actually, you don't know. I just throw this one in here.
Oh, wow.
And so question number one, this is a tough one. What do good leaders eat for breakfast?
Something healthy.
Like grits, because I know you had some grits. I know you had some grits this morning, so I just figured you'd be like, well, whatever I eat, you know. But healthy, good brain food. All right, let's jump into some of these questions here. Question just number one: what are good leaders born, or are they made, or would you say it's a mixture of both?
You know, I'm going to say a mixture. But I even hesitate to say that simply because I think that there's been a conception in the past that great leaders are born, that these guys just born this way, and that the rest of us fall into some kind of category of sub leader or manager or whatever. And I believe that there are certain people that are born with personalities that probably give them a propensity towards leadership. You know, we all have seen the kid on the playground that just attracts the other kids. Yes. They want to be around them. They want to, and you know, that's natural leadership. But there's a lot of people who you would consider born leaders, and really what it is they're just talented people, and they have an attraction about them that causes people to want to be around them. But I've really noticed that even people who have that tendency or that proclivity are literally have to develop their leadership. They cannot get by on just that raw talent or bent towards influencing people or attracting people. Matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say that people who we consider to be born leaders aren't necessarily influential leaders, they're attractive leaders, because influence is something you do. It's not something you are. And I think when we see someone who we think is a born leader, it's just a person who has attractive qualities that make you want to be around them. Maybe they're gregarious in their personality, or maybe they're extremely intelligent, or maybe they just push a button in you that says, man, I like that person, I want to be around them. And so we have this tendency to think, well, they're a leader. But I know a lot of people that are very attractive. They attract other people, but they're not good leaders. Mm-hmm. So I would say that regardless if you consider yourself a natural born leader or a made leader, I think every leader is made to a degree. You have to be developed. You have to be taught. You have to be coached. You know, I think the greatest leaders out there, if you'll go literally research who you consider to be a great leader, or even look in the books of history and consider, most of those never ever stopped learning. Most of them never stop. Most of them will have coaches in their own life, or people who they look to as leaders for themselves. And they are just persistently and consistently like that. And that's what makes them so effective, is because they're in this mode of curiosity. They always want to learn. They always want to know more. They always want to innovate. They want to find somebody.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, you talk to guys who are really, really, I mean, this is how I am. I don't consider myself to be great, but I am an experienced leader and a developed leader. And I got to tell you, I'm always learning. Like I'm curious. I want to know how was this better or is that better? Or why did that work and why didn't that work? And man, we totally jacked that up. What do we need to do to change that?
Yes.
What's a better way to do it? It's just like every day, every minute. And it's not like I'm a drudgery to do that. That's who I have become over years of saying, and great leaders that I know, that's how they are. They just never stop learning. And I'm just going to tell you, the leaders that I do know that put the brakes on, and they kind of have the mentality that they've arrived, and they don't really they don't keep that posture of learning. There's always not only a plateauing of their leadership that will happen, but many times some really, really negative things start happening because that's kind of a entry point for ego. In other words, I don't need to learn, I'm there.
Yes.
And so I think that can cause corruption. So long story short, I think that leaders mostly are made, developed.
That makes sense.
In that way. How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree. And I think as you're talking, it causes me to think about, I wouldn't say this is always true, but it seems like often people that are naturally gifted will sometimes be surpassed by people that are not. And I think it's for the reason that you're saying, that it's easy just to rely on that natural giftedness or even that attraction that you just are born with. Right. And so you're not forced to grow into those other areas. I mean, we've all heard, the story of Abraham Lincoln and all the failings that he had,
right,
and how it produced who he was.
Right.
And so, no, I'm in agreement with you. I think it's the hunger to grow, and to flourish. And I think sometimes you don't have that when everything's come easier for you.
Right. Well,
you can do it.
Right. And that charisma runs out at some point because people want to achieve something. They want to go somewhere. They don't want to just hang out with you because you're great. Right. Yeah. And at some point, I think that book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about that good to great CEOs that didn't just have good companies, but they took companies to greatness. Most of them had very even-keeled personalities. They were not gregarious. Some of them didn't even want to be in the limelight. And so I think it's interesting to note that it's not always the charisma, the energetic, the outspoken, that is that frontline leader that actually produces. It's people who just continually learn, stay curious, grow, want to know themselves, and have learned how to deploy that into other people's lives in such a way that it produces a context where that kind of thing can continually happen over and over and over again.
That's good. I think, as you're talking about the thing I keep hearing you say in the description of how a leader is made is a learner, is one of the things I keep hearing you say, is that it's someone that's constantly learning. You never think you've arrived. And so that sounds like a very important attribute of a successful leader is to be a continual learner. Yeah. What is maybe one or two other attributes of successful leaders that you see?
I think people who aren't afraid of consistency. I think that's one thing. True successful leaders, influential people, are people who are consistent. And I say that because we have a tendency in our culture to think it's the most exciting, the most famous, or the most notable, or whatever. and we don't want prestigious, maybe, because even look at all of the businesses or pitches to get people involved in things. It's always like, drive this car, own this home, go to this country. I mean, it's always the exciting, but most successful leaders, if you hung out with them, and I can tell you, I've read book after book after book. I've been around really successful leaders, and I'm telling you, most of them are not very exciting. They're not.
Yeah.
They are. But if you ask this one question, next time you connect with some leader you think that's a good leader, just ask them this one question: what 3 or 4 things do you do every day?
That's great.
And I guarantee you, almost every time I've asked that question, they all have. It may not be the same 3 or 4 things, but they all have things that they do consistently every day. I'm the same way, and I do that now because I've learned that over the years. Reflect, spend time thinking, spend time meditating. By meditation, I mean in prayer.
Yes.
Thinking on, processing what I'm trying to achieve or what I feel like the purpose of my life is, or maybe some project I'm working on. I read every day. I write every day. I dream every day.
Yeah.
However you want to say it. There are 3 or 4 or 5 things every single day without fail.
That's great.
Every day. Every holiday, every whatever. There are 3 or 4 things. And if you talk to any real leader or effective, successful leader like you asked, I've never run into one yet that isn't consistent. And it really is the dichotomy of leadership in our culture, because we look at influence as being this exciting party animal almost type personality of person. And truthfully, people who really, truly are successful and achieving what I would consider not just good things, but great things, are people who are consistent, and they allow the consistency and discipline of their life to compound over time.
Yes.
And there's a book out there, I can't remember the author,
Compound
but it's called
Effect.
The Compound Effect.
Yes.
It is amazing to read that. I had a guy actually come, a leadership coach, come and coach our team on the compound effect, and exactly how that consistency of right behaviors over time exponentially grows fruit in your life. So I think the effectiveness of leadership, and it goes back to learning again, even consistency in learning, having that teachable spirit and attitude that causes me to want to learn every day.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Howard Hendricks one time, and he was at a conference, and he was really old, and I think he's passed away now, but he was at a conference with John Maxwell, Andy Stanley, just some big guys that we all look to as, man, they're really great leaders. And I remember him saying that every year he takes another course, a college course, like he was in his 80s, and every year he takes another college course. Like, I read about a guy the other day that gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to his local community college. And no one even knew he was wealthy. And he wasn't really wealthy, but he saved money. And he gave this big endowment to this college. And they were like, and I think they even named the college after him, or they named one of the big components of the college after him. And when they went back and looked at his life, he was an older gentleman, and he had saved a lot of money to give to them. But he had taken every single course that they offered at that college.
That's just amazing.
Every course.
Yes.
And the reason I bring that up is because I just really believe, now knowledge isn't everything. Wisdom is something that you need with knowledge, because it's the proper application of knowledge and understanding. But it's not just about the learning, the textbook, the books. It's about the curiosity. Because it may not just be about books. It may be about watching someone's life, talking to a mentor, asking good questions, finding out how things work.
Yes.
So I think consistency, discipline, a learning spirit, and then I think someone who's influential, and I mean, like, they know how to impact the lives of other people. I heard somebody say, I think it's John Maxwell. He said that we want to move from success to significance. Success is all about me, and there's nothing wrong with success. Success is very good. You want to succeed. Why would you want to do something and not succeed at it? That's not how God made us. We want to succeed. We want to achieve. We want to get there. And the reason really we should want to is because we want to move from success to significance, because then significance becomes about using your success to add value to other people. And I think that people component, and I'm not saying you have to be that people person to be a great leader. To some level you do, but you do have to be an influential person to people. And I'm not talking about a notable person. I'm talking about a person who actually has practical influence in other people's lives. There's a big difference. I'm not influenced by people just because they're famous. I think it's one of the most ridiculous things in our culture. I do, that we give credit to people just for no other reason than they're famous. We do what they do. We wear what they wear. We take their advice. And I mean, think about it. We take their advice about our lives, and they can't even keep their marriages together for an average of 5 years.
Yeah, we give them instant credibility.
Right, just because they're famous.
Yes.
Like why?
It's position. The position.
Right,
yeah.
Positional leadership.
Yeah.
We're thinking on a very low level when we do that. And so I never just give credit to someone or follow someone or listen to the advice of someone just because they're famous. Because, as we know in our culture now, you can be famous for being famous. That does not make you influential. An influential person is a person who can have such an effect and impact on your life that it can move you from A to B.
Right.
Like their input and impact to your life literally moves your life down the track.
Yes.
That's influence. And so I think being an influential person, being a credible person, being a disciplined person, a consistent person, and then that learning person, that teachable person, those are assets of a leader that can't be like, you can give or take other things, but not
you gotta
those
have
things.
those.
Yeah.
I want to kind of go back onto something I was thinking about as you were talking. When you're hitting on consistent and being consistent, and you mentioned some of your daily things that you like to go through, and it made me think of like, I remember listening to Craig Rochelle talking about someone that the pastor Craig Rochelle. If you don't know, he's with Life Church, a large church, just a little.
He's going to be successful one of these days.
We're hoping he gets there.
Yeah.
But
such an amazing guy.
He had talked about someone he had admired, one of those guys that like when you're just around them, like wisdom, the way they prayed.
Yeah.
He's like, man. And he asked the guy, and the guy's like, well, he goes, honestly, the main things I just have read through the Bible every year for like the last 15 to 20 years. Yeah. Just now, I'm sure he had some other great attributes, but what he was contributing, this too was a very consistent thing.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about consistent, you said one of the things you said was meditation, and I think there is a thought of meditation to clear our mind, where we believe, I would say both of us, that we meditate to set our mind on something,
right? And
the compound effect, it even talks about that. I was thinking about that book before you said it.
Yeah.
He talked about as soon as he would wake up in the morning, when his alarm hit, he had some affirmations that he set his mind on.
Right.
I try to when my alarm goes off to read the verse of the day, just to let it sit. But I think people underestimate the power of what we set our mind on, and even what we speak. So maybe just speak to that for a minute. When you say meditation, what are some things you try to set your mind on as a leader to keep you on track? Because our minds can lie to us. We all have insecurities. We all can get off focus. We all can go towards the negative. We can all fear. We were talking about that this morning. What are some things you try to meditate upon to set your mind right?
Well, obviously being a Christian, and there are people that listen to this podcast that are business people or follow Gadberry Leadership Coaching that are not necessarily believers, Christians or whatever. And so if you hear this, don't be put off by that. It's my, I am a Christian. I do believe in Jesus, so it's going to come out of me. So there's no way around that. But the principles that I give you will be good. So don't hesitate and go, well, it's a Christian thing, I can't listen. It's really not true, because most leadership concepts that are taught today come straight out of the teachings of Jesus. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it's the truth. So anyway, I think when I meditate, I think you make a good point. Some of the Eastern meditation, it's more like empty your mind, like get quiet. But I think there is a getting quiet to meditation, but it's, to me as a believer, it's, the word meditation just simply means to mutter over to yourself over and over again. So there's a memorization component to meditation. There is a filling your mind with the right things. And so some of the things I do is first I get up and I pray. Now I'm just going to say something that I think is very interesting. And I know there are a lot of people that are different. They teach different this, but I think that consistency is created by patterns and by habits. But I also think that there are things like, I think Craig Rochelle teaches this as well. There are things that trigger. And if you leave out one of those, then it can mess everything up. It's like a chain reaction of what you're trying to achieve. And so it's like they call it key habits. And these habits are habits that will cause that pattern to be effective. But if you don't do these, then
it doesn't build.
It messes everything up. Now, I'm just going to give a little caveat here. I have ADHD. And so I'm a person who, if I don't focus and if I don't structure, my life can be very inconsistent. And I can also be far too, I don't know what to say, just too energetic or too bouncy or too sporadic or spontaneous or around. And my wife will tell you, my wife is kind of an accountability for me. She can tell when I'm getting off a good pattern. And she'll say, look, you're about to spiral down. And what that means for me is I start staying up really late. And I can be working, I can be studying, I can be watching the TV. It doesn't matter, but I can start getting in this habit of spiraling down. So, and then I'm tired, I'm worn out, my mind is sporadic, it doesn't stay focused. I'm saying all that to bring to the point of what I meditate on, why I meditate. So she'll call me on that. So here's what I have found out just in that interaction between she and I over the years. My trigger to get my pattern right is to go to bed early. So 10:30 in bed, going to sleep. Now, being a person with ADHD, sleep is a real issue for me. Always has been my entire life. But I've learned that if I get myself in this habit, then I start sleeping well. It just happens. Like if I consistently just make myself go to bed, and then I get up. So I go to bed at 10:30, get up 5:30. And the first thing I do is I get a drink of water, I put some sweats on, I go into my home office, I sit down and I get my Bible out. And I mean, literally nothing else. I just get my Bible out, and I have already planned reading. I have a reading plan. I read through the Bible every year. So part of reading through the Bible every year is that reading. Mm-hmm. And then after I'm done with that reading, then I will take another book of the Bible that has nothing to do with any of that. And I've got this Bible, which I love. It's just a great Bible. It's just an NIV Bible, but it's got, on the sides, it's got big margins, and you can just write notes in it. So I just go through a book of the Bible and just through all my study over the years, and I just start commentating on that. It's a way to study. So I'm just reading that scripture, and then whatever it says to me, like I know a lot about the context and the culture, so I'm not going through getting out commentaries, but I'm just reading that word and I'm getting it down. And if it sparks a thought in me, then I write it down. Now I'm doing this for two reasons. Number one, I'm doing it because because it helps me truly meditate on that word. What does this really mean? What is the point of view? Why is God saying this to us? Why would Peter write that? Why would Paul write that? What is James trying to get us to understand as believers? And then I just write those thoughts in the margins. Now, the second reason I'm doing that is because one day, someday, when I'm not here, my daughters and my sons and my grandkids are going to get those Bibles out, and they're going to hear my voice in those thoughts.
Yes.
And it creates a legacy of meditation. So it creates an importance and an understanding of, generations of impact. So then after that, I pray. So there's something about when I get the word in me like that, it just stirs my spirit up. I mean, not just my mind, not just my heart, but my spirit, man. So, I mean, I just start getting stirred up, and then I just start praying. I just talk to God. And for those of you who prayer may be a new thing to you, or what I'm talking about may be new, it's just talking to God. It's literally just talking to God, having a conversation. And I try to kind of follow a framework of the Lord's Prayer, praising God, petitioning God, asking for God's will to be done, His kingdom come, so on and so forth. And I go through prayer, and then if I have specific things that I want to pray about, people or issues or projects we're working on, or expansion we want to do, or friends I have all over the world that are doing ministry, just whatever those specific things are. Then I pray, and I pray them out. And I pray for our church, and I pray for our people, and I pray for myself and our own family. And a lot of my prayer, it sounds selfish, but it's not selfish. I pray for myself, not for things, not for God to do something, but for my heart, for change that I need to change. When I read that word, it convicts me like, hey, that needs to happen in my life. And I just pray that out. God help me. So then I move on from there. And then after I pray, then I write a devotion. I have a devotion that I'm writing for young people right now, young adults. And I have a group of like 7 young adults that I send this out to by text every morning. And so I'm doing like this new one's called My Prayer for Us Today. And so I'm actually making this a book. I'm going to be publishing this as a book, and I'm going to do it on for a devotion.
Oh, great.
So people can go through it. But it's just 100 Proverbs out of the book of Proverbs. And then I just write the devotion, and then I end it with, this is what I'm praying for us today. And then I send that out, and then I publish it probably on some kind of social media platform. Now, I do that not because of any other reason except it is literally a setting of the tone of purpose and leadership and influence and focus for the day. And then I get up and I go into my home gym and I work out for 45 minutes to an hour, and then I hit the day.
Nice. And
my day's all planned out because my week's planned out.
Yeah. I think obviously there are people, we understand that you haven't given your life to Christ, or you're not a Christian, and so you're trying to pull out of this. Well, I just would, encourage you to just look at the principles, obviously, right. And you're setting your mind on positive, affirming, but also opening up your heart. What needs to change in me,
right? And
so I think, man, just as a leader, that daily consistency of those things. It might be a set of questions that you go through. Yeah. Obviously, as Christians, we would love for everybody to be a Christian. Yeah. But there's things you can pull out of this. So are you consistently setting your mind on things that are real and honest and good and things that challenge you, and then also asking yourself, where do I need to grow?
Getting vulnerable with yourself.
Yes, and and so those are all good things. And I think something that was very important there. The kind of thought that came to me is creating a climate of consistency. Yeah. And I think for all of us, there are those triggers that you mentioned earlier to help with that climate of consistency. Because we know there's a rhythm, and finding your rhythm, not just of life, finding your rhythm of leadership and of growing. So how do we, what is it that you got to go to bed early, or if your schedule's really flexible, maybe you don't have to go to bed as early, but you still have to get up at a consistent time. And
it's not what works for someone else; it's what works for you.
Yes, but it's got to be
it's
consistency.
Yeah, this sporadic. let me give you an example why being sporadic and not consistent is a problem. We live in a culture right now that moves so fast that we're having breakdowns in all kinds of relational contexts because no one stops to think.
No, there's not.
All of that I said and talked about the things that I do, there's a portion of that is just time to think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's the last time you as a leader, and I'm speaking to anyone who's listening to this or watching this, have just sat down, you're not thinking about this person or that person or what we got to do this and we got to do it. No, you're just stopping to think through what you're trying to achieve or think through how your life is going. We operate in our marriages in passing.
Mm-hmm.
We operate in our parenting in passing. I mean, literally, we're living our lives in passing.
Yes.
With no intentional thought being given to how we want that to turn out.
We're being very reactionary.
Everything is reactionary.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we even realize it. It's kind of slowly melded into that where we're all just reacting to things. We're not literally being intentional about, okay, today, there's something that really became clear to me in the last, I want to say, 6 months. I've always been a planner, and I've always understood, back when Covey was a big deal and leadership were studying Stephen Covey, and he's passed on now, but the principles that he used were very effective principles. But talking about beginning with the end in mind and all of those kind of things and having those big vision goals, but then being able to break those down into smaller pieces and put them in your week. And so before each week, I sit down and I ask myself, I do not schedule my time ever. I do never schedule my time. I only schedule my priorities. And what that means is I take those rocks, those big rocks, those priority things, and that's what goes in my schedule first, period. My wife, my family, my God, and then major things that I'm trying to achieve. And that goes in first. And then anything else that needs to fit in can fit in, right? If it needs to. And if it doesn't need to, then I won't. Now, I do all that, and I create this context. Now, why do I do that? Because I need to be, a slave to my calendar? No. Here's why, Scotty. And I really hadn't understood this until just recently because of the way the world is, this whole living in passing thing. Because if I really set this is my priorities, and I know tomorrow I've got a block for this and a block for that, here's what happens. Then in this moment, like right now, talking to you, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing this afternoon.
Right.
Not one time. I can be totally in this moment because I know that I'm going to get to that moment and I've already prepared what that moment's going to be. So when I get there, then I can be totally in that moment. But right now, I'm not thinking about this afternoon at our staff meeting. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm not thinking about what we need to talk about or what. That's not on my mind. That's not on my brain. Mm-hmm. Why? I've already planned it out. I've already intentionally sat down and thought about it all the way through. And then I can be in this, like when I'm with my kids, I don't have to be kind of with my kids and on my phone or kind of with my kids. Oh, that reminds me of, and no, I'm honed in. It's just us.
Yes.
Let's talk, and I think really that's what it takes to get to that place. So the question is, do we really want to be at that place? That's why consistency is so important because it almost becomes second nature to you. If you do consistently what you need to do every day.
That's good. Yeah. Don't be consistently inconsistent. That's not what we're talking about. You're like, no, that's just how I am. Well, I mean, you're not going to reap the full benefit of who you can be if you do that.
And the fact is, consistency and spontaneity are not opposites.
No, it plans.
If you are a consistent person with 3 or 4 or 5 things in your life, then you'll have all kinds of spontaneity and you'll have all kinds of creativity and you'll have all kinds of, because what it does is it funnels your creativity. It opens up doors and opportunities and your mind to think outside of boxes that other people are in. Why? Because you are consistently founded on these principles that keep you in a place where you can do that. Where everybody else is just reacting to everything. Well, okay, so when do you have time to
when do you actually get some stuff like really thought through and done?
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I think obviously, there's a lot to pull from this, but being consistent, being a learner. I think those are huge things that what you've talked about today. And, I think obviously there's things that we do that allow us to be successful leaders, but then there's some things that we also do that hinder us. And I think the list of I was trying to remember where I read this or heard it, but it might be Craig or Shelley, but it's he has a few leadership things out there. So
I highly suggest people listening to his leadership
it's amazing.
And read his books.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal thinker. He's a phenomenal thinker, outside the box thinker, but man, just consistent.
You talk about consistent.
He is
listen to his
of consistency.
the way he schedules his things out, the way he thinks.
Right.
But I think the principle is that I was thinking of is create. They talk about creating a to-do list. Well, there's a lot of thought too about creating the don't list, the things you should stop doing.
Yes.
Start doing these. Stop doing these.
Yeah.
And so, what would you think is if you had to pinpoint one or maybe two dangerous traits that hinder our effectiveness as a leader, or even might cause us to go down routes in our life that we never would have wanted to go down? What is like a dangerous trait in a leader's career?
Man, there's a lot that people practice consistently and regularly today. But I'm going to tell you the one that comes to my mind immediately. And this is across the board. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a company, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a ministry leader, and at whatever level. I just want to say something declaratively and just put it out there. You are not a celebrity. And that sounds crazy to say that, or it would have sounded crazy to say that years ago.
Right.
But because of the advent of social media and getting the check and having how many followers and how many people liked and how many people, commented and blah, blah, blah. Ego is the killer of true humility. We as leaders, when you really become a leader, you mean a lot to people. It's just a fact. If people are following you, that means they appreciate your credibility, they appreciate who you are, they love your personality or whatever the case may be, but they're following. They've committed to follow you. That means they really, really like you most of the time. Or at least they really, really like where you're going. They like the vision.
Right.
So this puts you in a place of importance in their life. It puts you in a place of preeminence in their life. You're one of the people that really mean a lot to them.
Yes.
Okay? So what I see happening in a lot of leaders right now across the board is a taking advantage of that devotion and appreciation from the people who follow them. And then posturing themselves as if that responsibility they've given and privilege they've been given to lead makes them a big deal. And, you're not that big a deal. Just go ask your family. They'll tell you. And I'm not saying that because I think your family should cut you down, but your family knows who you are.
They see the behind the scenes.
And you're not that big a deal.
Yes.
You're not. And I really think, and I don't want people to have low self-esteem, because this is not about low self-esteem. That being humble is not seeing yourself as low. C.S. Lewis says humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Yes.
And I think humility means I think about others. Ego tells me I can't be seen doing certain things. I can't be seen in certain crowds. I've got to keep this persona. But people aren't following your persona. And if they are following your persona, that's going to crash at some point. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt you. And it's all pretend. We don't live in a pretend world. Our world is real. And if you cannot make that distinction, get off social media, get off everything that is making you feel like you are not in a real world. It's amazing to me how people act certain ways in the virtual world as if they don't realize that's real.
Yes.
Those are real people engaging with you.
It's too easy to just,
I really feel like that one of the strangest things that we're going through right now in our culture today, because of cultural and moral relativism, because of the absence of absolute truth and people's commitment to that, I think we're self-deceiving. I think when you get caught up in your own importance as a leader and you start taking advantage of the devotion that people have for you because of they appreciate your leadership, and then all of a sudden you see yourself as a big deal. You know, I don't remember who said this the other day, but I believe it's true, and many people have said it, so I'm not going to give it a source. But the idea is simply this: don't believe your good press or your bad press.
Yeah. I was about to say that same thing.
No, because you're not as good as some people think you are, and you're not as bad as some people think you are. Just quit making it about you at all.
Yes.
Because truthfully, it's not about us. It's not about the leader. You know, people will buy into the leader before they buy into the vision, but ultimately it will be the vision that carries people to the place that they need to go to achieve what they need to achieve. When we make it about ourselves and we become this internal celebrity in our mind and we're liked and we're popular, it's something that every leader goes through in their life, because popularity is a real thing and it's not always a good thing.
No, that's
and
right.
Right now, I think we're losing that battle. To be honest, right now, I think that in the realms of leadership in our culture, we're losing the battle, and we're not making that distinction between what we're trying to achieve and who we are. And a lot of people are pretending, and they're putting on a show, and they wake up one day and they go, "I don't even know who I am anymore."
Yes.
I mean, literally, that's happening. I mean, you're seeing people implode everywhere.
I believe it.
And this is a reason, because we're not being ourselves. And I'm going to give a biblical reference here, and you've heard me give this before, but I'm going to give a biblical reference here because I think it's important. And you'll get the principle if you're not really a biblical person, but a person that follows the Bible or whatever. But, you know, John the Baptist was a predecessor of Jesus. He was Jesus' cousin. But he also was a predecessor of Jesus. God sent him to go preach the gospel and say, Jesus is coming. He'll be next. And so John was this great guy. I mean, he was a great evangelist. And people by the thousands were coming out to watch him. And they would get baptized with him in the River Jordan. And then they would listen to his messages. And they just thought, this guy is amazing. Well, the religious establishment got wind that he's having all this success. So they want to go see who this guy was. And, you know, they study the prophets. They study the Old Testament. They know that there's a one coming that's supposed to be the Messiah. And they come and ask John, who are you? Now, the question they asked was in the affirmative. His answer was in the negative. They said, who are you? And John's answer was, I'm not the Christ. Now, I really believe that we have to come to the place in order to really realize who we are, we have to first realize who we are not. There's people out there all over the place, and we've all been guilty of this. We're taking on the attributes of someone else. We're looking and acting like someone else. We're trying to follow in the footsteps of someone else, and almost to the point that we're pretending to be them. And people get caught up in the comparison, and people get caught up. I believe in emulation, that there are people that are admirable enough that you should emulate the way they do life and what you can learn from them. But there's no need for duplication, because you weren't created to be the exact duplicate of someone else. You were uniquely created to be the exact you that you were created to be. So you have to understand, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a big deal. And I'm never going to be one. Even if I become famous, even if a lot of people know me, even if I'm very popular in my neck of the woods or in my niche, you're not, that the purpose of you doing that is not so that you can become a celebrity or to inflate your ego. The purpose is for you to arrive at significance, where your success gives you a gateway to making a difference in other people's lives. So really, it would be better for a leader to look at themselves not as a celebrity, but as a servant.
That's great.
I mean, really.
That's great.
This is not just a privilege. It is a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if it's a spiritual leading or if it's a business leading or whatever the case may be. The people that you're leading, you're responsible for them. You're responsible for them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
the idea is that I think every other negative thing that you want to get off your to-do list, your not to-do list, is probably founded in ego in some way.
And you said earlier, you mentioned entry point for ego. There's all these entry points for ego. Mm-hmm. And no matter what we're leading, whatever sector, ego isn't a healthy thing when it gets out of control.
Right.
And when pride grows.
Right.
We can be proud of things, but when we become arrogant and prideful, then we know that opens up the door for blind spots. We get bombarded by something we didn't see coming. Why? Because we're prideful. And I like something you touched on there when you said instead of becoming this profound leader that everyone looks to, focusing on serving.
Yeah.
And I think in every facet of life, if we serve, I think people at times are afraid if they serve, they'll seen as lesser.
Yeah.
But we know that serving is a way that you give back, and in a way that you show people how important that they are. And I feel like if you serve with the right motivation, people can never take advantage of you. We've had people before tell us in different areas of life, or say, hey, well, that person's taking advantage of you. I said, no, they're not, because I'm choosing to do this, and I'm choosing to serve. And being a servant leader, you allow your pride to be put aside and be crushed. And so I was thinking, like, for me personally, my first priority of people that I serve is my family.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just, through my life, I had certain things in my mind that I would purposely do to serve them, even at times when I was like, why do I have to do this?
Exactly.
And it was like, no, it's my choice. And it would
discipline and consistency.
Yes. Yeah. And it would allow me it would give me a little pride check.
Yeah.
Or even
like, are you too good?
Even here at the church, because this is my job.
Yeah.
And I'm new to the team, but even in other settings, I've been like, I've caught myself, well, I'm asking this person to do that, but I can't do that.
Right.
Now, obviously, I think there's wisdom in doing what you are supposed to do and what is most effective.
Right.
But there's times where I'm like, I'm literally thinking I'm too good to do that.
Yeah.
So what I found, what's good, is to do it.
Yes. Because you're thinking that way. And then also look at all your role as a leader as serving the person you're leading. Like, even if you get to that place where you can't do everything yourself, and you want to be operating in your gifts, and you want your people to be operating their gifts, well, even your discipline to delegate appropriately and find things out and learn and know people and connect with people, you're serving them because you're trying to get them to a place where they're going to achieve the most that they could possibly achieve.
That's good.
Everything we do should be seen through that filter. I like two little quotes that are really good. One was by a man that is he's kind of a very, I wouldn't say he's not timid at all. He's very bold, but he's not a loud, gregarious personality. His name's Dale O'Shields, and he's a pastor back east. And he says you should stop looking for your title and start looking for your towel.
Yes, that's good.
That reference to Jesus washing the disciples' feet. Stop looking for a title, start looking for a towel. And the other one is Matthew Barnett, who I think he's an amazing leader. And he said this. He said, if you want to be a bridge, stop complaining when people walk on you.
That's good. He's like, didn't you ask for it?
Yes. And I think there's some reality to that. Whenever we feel that little, that's not my, that's ego trying to creep in on
Crush
you.
that thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something else too. There are times when you, as the leader, need to be seen by your followers. Now, you're not being manipulative or just pretending, but they need to see you in a more frontline role.
I agree. Not
afraid to pick that up or move that around or lead in that way too. And not just be this person. I read a book a while back. I can't remember the author, but it's called Centurion Leadership. And it talks about how centurion leaders, Roman centurions, they led 100 men. They were very successful, very wealthy men, but they led 100. But they weren't like a general that strategized and then sent men out to fight. They were in front of the fight.
Wow.
And it talked about how the best kind of leading is leading from the front.
That's good.
And I think you can take that a lot of ways, but the biggest way is you are the model.
Mm-hmm.
You want to create an atmosphere, a dynamic in your organization that is more of a servant mentality, more of a team mentality, more of a compassion and a growing and an empathic type place that really gets results and innovates and thinks outside the box. Then lead that.
That's great.
Lead it by doing it.
Yes. That's
not
great.
by talking about it and saying this is what y'all should do, but actually doing it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ever ask our team to do something that we wouldn't be willing to do. It may not be most effective, but for us to do it, but we'd be willing to do.
It may have been, I don't know if it was on the, you turned me on to this podcast, How I Built This.
Yes.
I don't know if it was on that or if it was another podcast. I think it was Andy Stanley's podcast. He was interviewing the former CEO of Home Depot and how he's turned their organization upside down. So you know how like most hierarchy charts in organizational leadership is like a pyramid.
Yeah.
And there's a guy at the top.
The flow chart down from the top. Yeah.
He turned it upside down.
Wow.
And one of the things he does is he will call local stores and he'll tell them, I'm coming to work in your store for 2 weeks. And he'll go live in a hotel in that town. He'll put on a vest. He'll go to his aisle or his set of aisles and he'll work that just like he's a department worker. And he said, what happens is I hear what's really going on. I'm seeing the front. And he said, it's not to observe the employees as much as, are you doing this right? It's more to observe how we're leading.
It's great.
I love, is it Craig Rochelle again? Or yeah, it's Craig. He says, I never blame my team.
Yes.
I always ask, have I led them there?
Yeah.
So having that mentality of this is not about me. This is about what we're trying to achieve.
Yes.
This is about the vision. This is about the goal. I just happen to be the guy who has the privilege and responsibility to lead this, and I am benefiting greatly as a result of that. Now, I should just accept that as my reward and go for it and just be the kind of leader that serves and loves. Yes, I said love. I'm telling you, the best leaders I've ever encountered, and I've encountered some pretty big deal leaders that I consider to be big deals and have huge organizations. They have a sense of love for number one, for what they do.
Yes.
They have a sense of love for the people they do it with. And I'm not talking about they like them or they're glad they're a part of the team. No, they love them. And when I say love, they care about them.
That's great.
They care about what happens to them. They care about their families. They care about their kids.
Yeah.
They know what's going on in their world. That's the kind of leader that truly makes a difference. And even if that kind of leader doesn't make a big splash in the world, Scotty, do you know how many leaders are out there that are handling millions and even billions of dollars, and leaders out there that are handling hundreds and thousands of people that you and I never even hear about?
Oh, yeah.
They never even hit the radar of public opinion. No one even knows they
And they're
exist.
okay with it.
Yes. And it's sad to me that we turn our attention towards certain personalities because they're famous, and we're giving them or lending credibility to them based on their notoriety instead of their credibility.
Yeah.
And so it's important to me that notoriety has nothing to do with leadership. Nothing.
That's right. That's good.
That is not the end goal.
That's good.
The end goal is not to be known.
No.
The end goal is to accomplish the vision.
Be an effective leader of what you've been given.
And even more than that, it's not even just accomplishing the vision, but it's bringing the potential of the people you're leading out of them and getting them to greatness. I love John Maxwell says, no one ever leads to greatness by themselves. They
good.
always bring people with them. And so my deal is, look, that's my whole goal.
Yes.
If you're on my team and I'm leading you in any way, in any organization that I'm a part of, my whole goal is to bring out of you the best and the most that I can. And if I can say that, I don't care if anybody ever knew about me.
That's awesome.
I'm serious. Now, used to, I didn't think like that. There was a time and season in my life where I thought, like, I knew that God had put certain things in me. And in my mind, that meant that everyone was going to know me.
Right. Yeah, I've been there.
Right? Like somehow, God told me one time, I'm going to give you a message to the nations. And I do travel the nations. But in my mind, I thought, well, I'm going to have some kind of television program where I'm going to write a book and everybody's going to read it. And I didn't even realize it, but my mind was saying to me, true success in leadership is that everyone knows you.
Wow.
And you know what?
Wrong thinking, yeah.
I think true success in leadership is that everybody knows the vision and the people that you lead.
That's great.
They know about it. There's so many leaders that you don't know about, but then you start investigating their organization. You're like, my God, who is this person? Like, they're basically in obscurity, yet they've achieved so much. It's an amazing dynamic. And it's very, very sad when we confuse true leadership influence with public notoriety.
Yeah.
Because listen, there's a lot of people who have public notoriety, and just as much as they are known, the positives are known. The negatives are also known.
That's right.
And sometimes that attitude, that mentality of notoriety, it's just feeding your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see guys who achieve that and it destroys them.
Yes.
And I've seen guys who don't achieve it and it destroys them.
Yeah.
Because they resent the fact that they didn't achieve it. And then they're missing the fact that they have raised up leaders, that they've made a difference in people's lives, that people's lives will never be the same as a result of impacting them, but they're not happy or satisfied because they resent the fact that everyone doesn't know them.
Yep. And that's not the goal.
No, come on. No, it's not the goal at all. It's not the goal at all.
No.
Like literally, if you're a great leader, get in your head. It literally doesn't matter if anyone knows you in terms of public notoriety.
Right.
It doesn't. And a matter of fact, in today's world, I would dare to say that there are some people that are really great leaders and they are known publicly, and they would trade with you your obscurity in a minute.
Absolutely. They're like,
they're done. They've gotten there and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you. David, thank you so much for today, man. That's great stuff. I mean, I think every leader can really benefit from this. And so why don't you close us out today as we finish up?
Yeah, well, listen, guys, I just want you to know that the reason we do this literally is just what we said before, to add value to you. And so hopefully something we've said or something you've picked up on, maybe we didn't even say it, but just in the context of the conversation, you picked up on some things in your own mind that really spoke to you. I hope that it really adds value to you. I hope it makes a difference in your life. And if it does, feel free to communicate back to us. Or maybe if you have some questions that you would like for us to talk about later, you can communicate back with us at connect@gadberry.org, and we'd be more than happy to include your questions or listen to your comments or maybe even read your comments on the podcast. But we just want you to know that our goal is to add value to as many people as we possibly can. So, I know there are a lot of people out there that are just needing more resource and more help and more encouragement. And maybe we've had a little bit of experience and we can help some people. We've got a lot to learn ourselves, but we want to, part of learning and part of developing is making sure that we are giving out and mentoring and helping as much as we can. If you want to know more about our personal coaching company and what we can do for you or your company or organization, go to gadberry.org. You'll find everything you need to know about us there. Group coaching experiences, like I talked about before, coming up. But we just want to tell you, we appreciate you being a part of our leadership network. We appreciate the fact that you would spend time gleaning from this or taking something from this or even contributing back. So just share it with anybody that you think it might help, and because we'd love to add value to them as well. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell so it'll remind you every time a new podcast comes out. And we'd love for you to be a part of our leadership family. God bless you. Thank you so much. And here's what I want you to do today, right now. Think of someone that you can add value to. And I'm going to make you a guarantee. I don't make a guarantee about anything else I do, but this one thing, if you'll take the time to add value to someone's life today, I guarantee you that the greater value will be added to you. I promise you that's the case. Happens to me every time that I intentionally do something great for someone else. Man, it blesses me more than it blesses them. So I want to encourage you to get in that flow and just use all the creativity and innovation and leadership ability you have to make a difference in someone's life. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you. Have a great day.